Hey everybody, Tom Moto-Resto. We are going to continue the last video with a separate video here on actually test riding this thing. I'm going to go over the parameters and how we're going to do that, the logistics in a moment. First things first, we have to get this off the lift. Now the lifts, rather plural. Now the way I do this is, see my Harbor Freight lift, the one on the right there, that one, is facing us toward the head side, so I can have the controls, you know, on the right where I can get them. And so I put holes in both ends for the ramp. So I put a ramp in this one and put my regular ramp in the airlift. And then it's a matter of time slicing, running back and forth and letting the thing down, you know, one side at a time. I've done this a number of times, and so it's, you know, on my rig. And another one I built as well. So yeah, it's not too terrible to do. Now, I don't have everything completely done yet, but I have it up to the point where I can test ride it. I have the lights wired, they all work, turn signal works, brake lights work. Do not have the electric adjust for the sidecar done. That what is that? That linear actuator. I don't have that wired up yet because it's essentially a reverse polarity setup. So there's only two wires going to it. So you have to reverse the polarity to make it go either up and down, up or down. It's kind of like door locks, power door locks on the older cars and newer ones as well. You know, back in the old alarm days, we had to work out a two relay pack with a special wiring format to make it go reverse polarity with doing an aftermarket alarm. I could do that with this, but it's just easier to use a reverse polarity switch, which is a double pull, double throw, momentary. I'll maybe make another video of that separately. I don't have one yet. I had to order a couple of them online. So I don't know if we're going to mount it yet, but we're going to just put a double pull, double throw, momentary switch in, wire it for reverse polarity, and that'll control the linear actuator for the sidecar height. So anyway, let's go ahead and get it off the lift. I'll show you how to do that real quick. We'll do a time lapse on that, so you're not too bored, and then we'll take it from there. I fine-tuned the height on this chair lift, if you will, chair lift, with metal shims between the, you know, the crossbar, the lock bar, and the actual frame of the. Ooh, that wasn't a fart. Trust me, it wasn't. That was my sneaker. Between the lift and that bar. That's an object of experimentation. The chairlift is being held up by hydraulic only. Now I'm going to get the airlift, bring it up slightly, release that, and then we'll start bringing them down. A second person would be helpful. I can get it right down on the ground, but I don't have one. Now I'll give you a hint here, folks. If you're doing a sidecar job like this, and you're up on a lift or wherever, keep it in gear and or chock the wheel, because once this thing's on three wheels, it's going to roll away. It will roll right off of your surface. So don't ask me how I know. I haven't dropped one, but I've had mine roll back on the lift a couple times going, whoa. All right, we're down, and no worse for the wear. Now, naturally, you have to make sure the lifts are not contacting each other. The way this one's set up was actually really good. I mean, I was a couple inches away, the second lift from the first lift, and so I was really had a good amount of freedom to move, you know, because there's a bunch of twisting and torquing and stuff you do to get these things to line up. So, all right, so now I put my ramp obviously in, and then we'll get it off the lift completely. Take a good look at it out in the light. I forgot to add, because the lift is backwards, you know, this is not a scissor lift that goes up and down like the airlift. It's I don't know what you call it, you know, the kind that angles up and down. So one side pushes away while the other side goes down. Because it's reversed and the weight is not designed to be exclusively on this end when you're loading and unloading, it will flip that lift up when it hits that. So I got a stack of 2x4s underneath there to prevent that from happening. Yeah, that was a surprise finding when I did that the first time a while back, but we got it covered. Okay, now she's surprisingly light. compared to the Magna. I thought this would be a lot harder to roll around. This is really light. Moving the Magna around is definitely a chore. I was on the impression that this Sidecar weighed more than the other one. Mine does, and I think it does. But just the way it's set up, or I don't know, the way it is, it's definitely lighter. So I think what I'm going to do for a test ride, and this is something you have to experiment with as well, is I might put a little counterweight in the back of the Sidecar or in the Sidecar itself. I have some in my Sidecar. I don't know how much, pound wise I have. I probably got about 50, 60 pounds in that. And I made a concrete block out of some leftover Quickcrete one time. Just put it in a cardboard box and let it cure, and took the box off, and actually I left it in the box, and it's as part of my counterweight setup. Plus I have tools and stuff in mine, so it's a little bit different setup. So you have to accommodate for all that as well. I'm just going to maybe throw a little bit in to just to be a little on the safe side, because I just don't know how this is going to handle in a right turn. I don't want to fly the chair, if certainly not unintentionally. So let me do that real quick, and then we'll see how she does. I'll explain how I'm going to document that here, or hopefully document here in a second. I have a GoPro 1, it's the original GoPro. I will try my best to attach it in various locations, give you a view of different, or I should say different views, different aspects, but no guarantees, because it's crappy, the lens is damaged, and who knows if it's even going to work. We'll try it, see how it goes. So that's what I'm going to try to do. The audio is probably going to suck too, but it is what it is. I see my first problem. I wasn't able to test this on the lift. I can't get a full right turn because the steering damper is collapsing, or I should say compressing all the way. So I'm going to make an adjustment on that and see if we can get that in a good middle ground. All right, we're all reworked and it works. These are trial and error anytime you have a custom steering dampener. So what I generally do is go to one extreme of the length of it to where I hit the steering stop, and then make the measurements, by experimentation. And then I had to move around this guy down there and flip it up, because with it down angled, this would interfere with the front upper bar. Can't flip the bar because that support would be in the way. Can't use it then. Plus this is designed to be done this way anyway for strength. So yeah, let me show you how it works. Let me show you how to test this, because as you can see, we're quite a ways toward the limit of the swivel of that joint there. But there's a way to test that, pretty simple, is when you're in your extreme positions, if this thing moves a little bit, rotates, then it's not bound. Now this is pretty wore out. These joints here are pretty wore out, but we're going to use them for now. So when you bring it back around, as you go through, it gets a little tighter there, looser, looser. So it's going to hit a tight point, and it's going to hit a loose point. All you do is just keep moving it. And this is where we're at our loosest point, because it's the straightest. These are the straightest. But it'll work. We're at the farthest right on the steering damper. You can see we're not all the way in now. And we can extend too, as you already saw. So all right, let's resume. Folks, I am not displeased at all with the setup. In fact, I don't think I'm going to change anything. When you operate a sidecar like this, I'll get into this here in a minute more. You know, you have to understand that under acceleration, the mass of the sidecar being undriven and held off the right side of the bike will make this thing want to pull to the right a little bit because you're accelerating. That's something you have to compensate for. And the opposite is the case when you're braking. Now, in this particular one, speaking of brakes, and I still don't know the model of this sidecar, Friendship or something, I don't know. California sidecar, whatever, but it does have a hydraulic disc brake on the third wheel. The way I found it was hooked up to the well, actually, it wasn't hooked up, but this bolt was in the master cylinder loosely. It's an extended custom-made bolt. It essentially gangs the two banjos together. So this is the one for the motorcycle dual disc front brakes, and this is the one for the sidecar on this braided line. Now, I don't like the feel of this at all. It's very spongy. I just can't seem to get all the air out of, I'm pretty sure it's that, because when I don't have a second person to help bleed it. I really need to have two people to bleed this one. It's going to have to do the on-off type bleeding because when I use a one-way check device into a container to bleed this through, I think it's sucking some air in around the threads of the actual bleeder. And so basically I'm going to just have to get my wife to help me and squeeze the front brake maybe this afternoon. I got to go get some more brake fluid actually. And then we'll get it bled properly, hopefully. That just involves removing the wheel, which isn't too hard, and then getting behind there and doing the bleeding. It's just too close otherwise. It's easier that way. But otherwise, yeah, when the way you set these things up is when you're at nominal throttle, in other words, cruising throttle, and you don't really have any acceleration or deceleration going on, it should go straight and not want to favor one side or the other. Even with a crown in the road, it should go straight. And how you test that is you simply put the clutch in and you know, kind of light grip on the handlebars and then see if it wants to go anywhere, because at that point you technically, yeah, you're decelerating, but on a flat road not much. And so I did that a few times and it did not pull at all, so I'm real happy with the way it handles. This is a little jerkier than my Magna. I think the Magna, I don't know, it almost feels like the Magna's wheelbase is longer. But, you know, maybe it's because you're kind of scrunched up in the seat here, because this is kind of a forward sitting deal here. My Magna, you're much further back, actually. At least it feels that way. So yeah, I'm not displeased at all with it. Before I took it for a ride, I rechecked the lean out. It was right at 1.3 degrees, and I rechecked the level of the car. The level of the car, you know, basically left to right this way was perfect. I can't get the level of the car fore and aft any better because of, again, this situation. Now, if I bump this out, actually, it feels a little crunched in, like you're a little too close to it. I don't know, maybe it would be worthwhile to try to move that out and separate the car a little bit further, but the problem with that is, I don't know if we're going to be, well, we probably could just move that up again, but it's going to take a ton of work to do that, to get that pulled out. I don't really know if we're going to get a whole lot of benefit out of it. There are benefits to having the chair closer to the bike. One of them is sidecar scrub. Now what sidecar scrub is, in a very hard turn, the sidecar wheel actually moves sideways a certain amount, almost sometimes as much as it's moving forward, or the chair is moving in that arc. And the wider the stance of the sidecar, like you can see, mine's pretty wide. Mine scrubs like a son of a gun. This is definitely a wider chair than the one I'm working on now, the Shadow. So at slow speed, they handle a lot better. Higher speed, I'm not too sure about, because this one does feel a little squirrely at higher speeds. I don't know. I'm going to think about that, because I don't know if it would be a tremendous amount of work or worth it to try to move this away from it and re-level it and so forth. Then I'd have to really do everything over, the toe in and toe out and everything. I'll think about it. But anyway, yeah, I'm not displeased with it at all. I mean, I ran it up to about 55. That's the max I'd do with these tires. Probably shouldn't have done that. They're all dry rotted and cracked, you see. So I don't know. I think I'm just going to leave it, and if the customer doesn't like it, then he can bring it back and I'll do it at that time, because, you know, again, there's some distinct advantages to having it a little bit closer together. than further apart, and especially at slower speeds for turning. It definitely turns easier than mine, there's no question about it, even with the steering damper, steering stabilizer on there. So I'll leave it because, like I said, we'll have him take it for a ride and see what he wants to do with it, if anything. I don't really think he's going to ride it all that much, and he's certainly not going to ride it at high speeds. But, you know, I'll run mine up to 65, 70 miles an hour in a heartbeat. And, you know, I don't have any problem with it at all, running down the road. But I got good tires. And it just, you know, I'm used to it. So that brings me to another point here that I wanted to mention. If you're new to this game and you're thinking about doing a sidecar addition to your bike and you're going to do it yourself, which is fine, I encourage that. I just want to caution you that I'm an experienced sidecarist. I've been riding these for about 5 years now. I mean, that thing out there barely has a couple hundred miles on it as a two-wheeler. And I've had it like 5 or 6 years. So I've had it 3 wheels the vast majority of the time. So I'm used to it, and I'm used to riding 3 wheels. And I can go back from 3 to 2, no problem, back and forth. Some people can do it, some people can't, some people hate it, some people love it, some people want to do it exclusively, no more 2 wheels. Whatever the case may be, if you're new to it, you definitely want to get some training and take it easy when you're learning, especially on an unfamiliar outfit, because you can easily flip this thing over. There's 2 main crash issues that you can have with a sidecar. The first one would be when you fly the chair and lose control and maybe steer into the other lane in a right-hand turn. In US-based sidecars, that'd be a right-hand turn where you'd lift that chair up. In the video, I tried that a couple times around some right-handers, and it seemed to be pretty stable. That's about 45 pounds of counterweight in the chair right now. So I'm going to tell the customer to use that if he wants to, that kind of weight. And so that's number one. And number 2 is you can actually have a situation where if you have a very hard deceleration and a turn to the left, in other words, if you're actually turning to the left, which would throw the weight down on the sidecar, and you're decelerating hard, like in an evasive maneuver, you can have a situation where the actual chair goes down and wants to nosedive at an angle, of course. So at this angle right there, you see the angle of the center of that wheel to the center of the front wheel. You have a potential, a point of a, you know, basically point of a triangle there, if you really, or edge of a triangle, where it can drop down if you're in that situation. Those are the 2 main things you got to watch out for, is flying it and then losing control, because naturally what happens is you want to counter steer it back in. Well, counter steering it back in when your right-hand turn means you do less of a right-hand turn, and that means you're probably entering the other lane, get whacked by oncoming traffic, and so forth. So that is probably the biggest one, and the second biggest one would be the one where you're diving this thing in. It all depends on setup, of course, and it all depends on your experience and how fast you're going. So again, if you're going to be new to this, if you're going to do it, take your time, learn it. If you're going to have somebody else build it, they'll probably give you training on it, which is fine. And if you want to reach out to me, I can give you some recommendations on to whom to use for that. I won't go into that in this video. So the next things I have to do, of course, to finish this out, and I did order one. I can't wait on the customer to look around for a seat up in New Jersey. I did find that, I ordered that one rather, I found on eBay, so it'll be here Saturday, I think. We'll get this passenger seat in. This cover should be here today. We'll paint that up and snap it on, and then she'll basically be done. I'm not doing tires. I'm not doing any of that stuff. Customer wants to do that, you can bring it to his shop. I mean, I could do these tires. I could do the bike tires. That one I'd send out because it's more like a trailer tire, auto tire, small auto tire, obviously. And, you know, I would sub that one out to the tire store. But I could do the bike tires. But at this particular stage, I got to move on. I emailed the customer last night and told him, look, we got to get this thing out of here. It's almost done. He says, fine, thanks for the update. Basically, that's it. One final thing I'll cover, if you're watching this saying, that's interesting, I'd like to do a sidecar, I wonder how much it costs. These are really expensive. To do this kind of work is really expensive. The labor on this, I don't remember how many hours I have into it, but I bet you when I get done, I'll have like 35 hours into it. That's the bike side and the sidecar side. And actually, if you bring somebody a perfectly working motorcycle. It's going to be less hours because this thing obviously was a train wreck. You saw that from the other videos if you watch the Circus Bike video playlist. And so I had to put a lot of time into this bike. But between the bike and the sidecar, I bet you it's 35 hours, maybe more. And so luckily I only had to do a little bit of fabrication on that rear mount, which seems to be working perfectly fine. Let's go check that out. I haven't even looked at it. Yeah, you see, it's not, it hadn't moved. It's not going to move. It's going to be perfectly fine. That's really thick steel. It's, you know, the part's welded to the frame, so we're good. So I'm not worried about that at all. What I'll do finally before delivery, or when the customer picks it up, is verify everything works still, you know, the lights and everything else. Get that, you know, that linear actuator working to raise and lower the sidecar. Recheck all the sidecar fasteners. Every single one of them gets checked to make sure they're tight. Recheck anything else as far as fasteners that I see fit. He can pick it up and then do what he wants to do in regards to tires and stuff. That's going to be it. Yeah, so I don't think you're going to see any more video on this project. This should be it. And I'm sure there's people out there going, thank God. All right, folks, like I said, that's it. Sidecars are a lot of fun. They're complicated. They're expensive, yes, but you get a lot out of them as well. I use mine as a daily driver, a grocery grabber, and it just runs me around town. I pick up pretty much everything I need that isn't too long for the sidecar in the sidecar, okay? So I don't even put a whole lot of mileage on my pickup because of it. So if you're interested in sidecars, here's what I'd suggest you do. You can certainly reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you with sidecar work, even remotely, or if you want me to do some sidecar work for you if you're in Florida, or if you want to bring something in from out of state, that's fine too. I'll put my email at the end of the video. You can also join great organizations like the United Sidecar Association, USCA. They'll answer all your questions as well. There's a lot of great people on there on their Facebook page, and I strongly encourage that. So I guess it's time to sign off finally, huh? And just want to say thanks for watching the video. Definitely like the video. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. And if you ring the bell, you'll get notified automatically. What a deal. So, as I always say, and sign off with now, don't just repair, restore. Catch you on the next video.